Hello and welcome to 15 for 15. I'm your host, John Zalkin from RKW Residential. 15 for 15 is a new and exciting video series where we interview 15 influential real estate people for 15 minutes each, where we will get their perspective on what is happening in real estate during COVID-19. A little bit about RKW. RKW Residential is an award-winning third-party property management firm with over 20,000 multifamily units under management and a growing footprint spanning 6 states. RKW delivers expertise in management through its technology, marketing, and customer experience platforms. My guest today is Mark Meland from Meland, Russin, and Budwick. Mark is a founding shareholder of the law firm. He is an accomplished real estate lawyer with a diverse client base representing real estate developers and entrepreneurs, private investors, and institutional and hard money lenders. He's also an accomplished corporate and transactional lawyer, providing general corporate services to the firm's corporate clients. Mark, it is great to see you, and thank you so much for taking the time to join me on this episode of 15 for 15. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you are seeing from your real estate clients in regards to COVID-19. Can you please just briefly expand on your bio and then tell us what you're seeing in the markets today?
Sure. John, first, thanks for having me. And thanks for all that you do for the community. You're a good community man. Your company is a terrific representative in the community. Meland, Russin, and Budwick was founded 27 years ago, and our firm specializes in very particular areas. We specialize in real estate transactions, general corporate transactions, bankruptcy, and commercial litigation. And then within the bankruptcy practice, we have a niche practice of financial fraud where we represent the good guys, the trustees and fiduciaries in Ponzi schemes and other financial fraud cases. We're a counter-cyclical firm, so in times like these, we're used to handling good times and bad times. That's sort of how we've been designed. Right now in the world, we're seeing a kind of craziness that everyone's experiencing, but everyone is experiencing it together, which is interesting because it's very different than other recessions and other hard times we've gone through. For instance, in 2008, 2009, which was banking related. Here, the banks are doing well. They're not in trouble. And people understand that what's going on is occurring throughout the entire US economy, but also the entire world. And so there's quite a bit more collaboration going on that we see than historically we've seen when there are problems out there. So for instance, for loan transactions, we see local banks in particular working with their customers on deferments without really a lot of negotiations, pretty standardized kind of deferments and standardized sets of documents to get the system going, and without getting criticism from the FDIC by making these banks write down these loans. In the last go around, when there were problems with loans, it hurt the bank very much, and then it was very difficult sometimes to do these negotiations with the banks. Here, it's been very collaborative, and everyone's working together in trying to resolve and get through this. Now, obviously, that could change if this lasts much longer, but right now, this is a short-term fix to what looks like hopefully will be a short-term crunch, which we'll see how long that lasts.
So walk me through a little bit about how your clients are coming to you, whether they're retail, hospitality, and you're making the reach to the banks and you're starting the discussions and things are starting to happen. Walk me through a little bit. I know you have a lot of clients that have been happening. And 3 weeks ago when we originally spoke, you were starting to get it rolling. So give us some examples or walk us through how somebody would do this and what to expect from the banks.
Sure. Well, we're certainly getting a lot of phone calls, and we're spending a lot of time on the phone talking to people, and it's talking to people about business issues, but also talking through issues that people are having, just nervous and scared of what's going on. What we recommend clients do is really to be very open and discuss openly and quickly with whoever they have to deal with the problem. Whether you're a tenant that needs to talk to their landlord, don't wait. talk to them. The landlord is going to understand what you're going through and talk to them. And then the landlords to talk to their bankers as quickly as possible. And they understand what's going on. They're sitting in their houses right now, also locked up. And so they understand what you're going through as a owner of property, but also what your tenants are going through as tenants of your properties. So again, I go back to, it's been fairly collaborative so far in this. And so we're recommending you quickly discuss it and be open about it and try to get a resolution. And people are trying to get to resolutions right now.
So most banks pretty much have something already in place where if once they pick the phone up and they're like, "Hey, Joe Smith, we know you pretty much what you're going through. We're going to give you X, Y, Z."
Right. So I'll give you, for instance, there's certain local banks now, and we've now seen this with several that have basic form set of documents. And the documents are really, if you see these, some do it in vis-a-vis letter agreements, and some do it look a little more formal, but they're generally not a lot of lawyers involved in these. They're not, these aren't prepared by the outside counsel. These are forms that perhaps were prepared by banks counsel, but they're very standardized sets of documents. And in that, they basically are giving what the parameters are on which they're willing to defer loans. And it's typically 90 days, no interest, no payments for 90 days. Those payments then get added on to the end of the loan or payable over certain periods of time. So when you look at these letters, it's interesting because, you see forms, most of it's a form. So it's basically the same letter that's gone out to 30 other borrowers. And then there's one section where they ask for information. And that's also one thing we're talking about our clients on both sides. The banks are going to want to get more information from the borrowers. They want to see updated financials. They want to get more information on the borrower, on the guarantors, on the tenants. And so it's an opportunity for them to sort of clear up any deficiency they've had in information that they have. But also from the borrower's perspective as a landlord, it's also an opportunity to get information from the tenants. For instance, some national tenants don't give as much information to their landlords as the landlords would perhaps like. So we're seeing now that there's opportunities to get financials on some of these companies and to get store sales on some companies that often these large national tenants won't give. But now we're seeing that they're willing to give a lot more information to get the relief that they need.
So I know you don't have a crystal ball, and if you did, you probably wouldn't be a lawyer. You'd be in the equities markets. But do you see this going 69? Because I know if the banks are doing 90-day deferrals, right? So the bank's thought process is, hey, let's just give this 90 days to figure out. It helps everybody out. But if you own a property, you still have to do upkeep, you still have maintenance, you still have your insurance and your taxes and whatever it is. But let's call it 90. Do you see this going longer than 90 days? And if you do you think the banks are then going to maybe pull hard? Because I know banks don't ever want to own property. But at what point does this go the other way, like 2008 and 9, do you think, or you just don't think it does?
So it's so widespread right now. And again, this didn't happen because some landlord and building owner mismanaged the property. He could have been the greatest manager, the greatest landlord, great to his tenants, great to the bankers. So I think that a lot of it's going to be driven by what the government does. We hate to say that the government gets so involved in the markets, but they are involved in these markets. And a lot of it, what will the FDIC do here? Because right now, the FDIC is saying, make deals, and we're not going to make you write down your loans. We're not going to criticize you. You don't have to worry about your portfolio. Where before, for instance, in the last recession, they were getting tremendously criticized. It was killing banks, and it was also impacting how banks treated their customers. So I think while I don't have a crystal ball here, I do believe if the government and if business folks believe that it's going to go past the 90 days, that it's going to be fairly standardized too. Now, if it goes a year or two, obviously it's a very different situation here. But you can back end on a lot of deals if you're talking about 90, 120. I'll give you for instance, I have a client that we negotiated. It's a very large loan. It's an operating company, but also has real estate. And in that situation, we got 90 plus 90 because their business is related to the hospitality industry. And the hospitality industry, as we know, um, we don't know, as we don't know when it's going to be up and running here, because we don't know how people are going to feel about staying in hotels, and it takes a while for that industry to gear up. So in that situation, the bank understood that that was their main bread and butter. Even this is not um, an actual real estate business. It owns real estate, but it's a business that services the hospitality industry. And there, we negotiated 90 plus a 90-day extension if we don't believe that it's going to be well enough in the first 90 days.
Yeah.
So, again, it isn't, oftentimes over the last go around, it was, there were a lot of fighting. Here, this isn't really fighting. This is all like, we're in it together, and we're going to try to work collaboratively to get to resolution.
Yeah, it's a little bit like 9/11 was, where everybody got together.
Absolutely.
We were
Absolutely.
in Miami Beach at that time, and I remember being in the hotel business and shutting 4 hotels down overnight and going from 5 to 1. And the banks and Cisco and all the big companies were working with everybody. And 3, 4 months later, we were back up and running again. But I remember
Right.
having Costco to go shopping for stuff because we were down to 1 hotel. So it was like, go buy bagels for the breakfast. And,
Yeah.
you know,
And listen, there'll be winners, because the companies that are in the cleaning business, with hotels, are going to be much more in demand. And so those companies are going to do terrific, as I'm sure we're going to see advertisements for, some of the big hotel brands, how they're safe to stay in, and they're going to explain to you what their cleaning processes are in the bathroom, in your hotel room, and the sheets that you're lying on.
yeah.
So I think that there certainly will be companies that do really well coming out of this, um, and hopefully doesn't add too much of a cost to rent a room.
Yeah. So one of the last things I want to touch on, and I know it's very early on in the market, so we don't know yet, is CMBS. But I know your firm has a big bankruptcy practice. So walk a little bit through what you're seeing there and the potentials.
Yeah. So there's local banks, which we talked about. There's agency debt, and again, the agency debt on residential they're basically having standardized deferments too. So that's going to work its way out too. We're not seeing that with CMBS and the servicers. We don't. It's still early right now to see, but we anticipate that's going to be where probably there's going to be less flexibility there, less cooperation, and perhaps more litigation about that. Now, the issue there becomes, if you're familiar with CMBS loan documents, there are typically there's limited guarantees, but they have springing guarantees. And what that means is that if you're the principal of the borrower and you're agreeing to certain limited guarantees, you're not going to steal rent, you're not going to steal insurance money if you go bad, limited kind of guarantees. Those are non-recourse carve-out guarantees or indemnities. But they also have in them where if you decide to litigate very hard with the bank or file bankruptcy, then that non-recourse guarantee turns into full recourse. And so that, in the last go around, actually, we've already been through that. There were probably less bankruptcies than there would have been in the last recession, because people had to make a decision. Do I have enough equity in this property to take a risk personally here that about a deficiency judgment? It's the last go around, we had a hotel project where there was a tremendous amount of equity in the project. And it was a CMBS lender, and very tough, hard-nosed litigation. And our client decided to file bankruptcy because there was such a gigantic piece of equity that person that wanted to save, that it was willing to take a risk that now you are personally on the hook for that debt. So I think people are going to be forced into those kind of decisions at some point if they're dealing in the CMBS industry.
So it's amazing how short term, it's only 8, 7 years ago people signed on those loans. And I'm sure they said, I'll never do it again. And fast forward a few years later, and we're back with the same CMBS stories, right? So,
Right. Listen, there are CMBS is successful, and there are, certainly it works in certain transactions, and it doesn't work in certain transactions, particularly in the workout scenario. It's much different. In the last go around, we probably had over 150 litigation matters that are really dealing with CMBS, more so than any other of the type of loans, that were out there.
hey, a new world. A new world. Like I said,
I don't necessarily, I'm going to be optimistic because I'm generally an optimistic person. And, we're all going through this and it happened so quickly. And what we're seeing now is everything is jammed up. And so everything's jammed up. Everyone's hoarding cash, but the people do have cash and some businesses do have cash. And so nobody's paying, no one wants to pay anybody right now. But I think because we don't know how long it's going to be. And so to me, there's, how do we get out of this? We get out of this by testing, by having more information, by perhaps having some sort of treatments of this thing. Because once you know that, and you can go outside and go eat, your taco at your Mexican restaurant, you're going to go there, and you and I are going to shake hands and give hugs to each other when we go out.
Well, as somebody who's always a big fist bumper, I hope the handshake never comes back. Even before it was cool, I wasn't into shaking hands.
See, I'm a different family. The men in my family hug and kiss. So we're huggers and kissers.
Family's different, but when it comes to we're networking events, I got to shake 100 hands. Yeah.
And we have a couple germaphobes or officers happy about this, the new reality that's probably going to happen.
I worked for a mutual friend of ours 20 plus years ago, and he was the first person that I ever saw ever not shake hands and fist bump. And I was always like, why? And then as I got older and got a couple flus, I was like, yeah, maybe he was onto something.
Yeah. Or we'll adopt the bow. That could happen too.
They're onto something over there. All right, let's do our lightning round questions. We'll wrap it up and we'll let you get back to saving the day for your clients.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Let's go. Number one, does the 10-year close over or under 1% at the end of this year?
Under.
Next time you're on an airplane, over or under 90 days?
Under.
Next time you attend a networking event, over or under 90 days?
Under.
Next lunch or dinner at a restaurant with a client, over or under 90 days?
Under.
Is the election suspended, yes or no?
No.
Will Trump win or lose?
That's a good question. Well, we know now who today we found out who he's running against.
Right.
I think that, the issue like we were starting to hear about now is going to be, I'm sorry, it's probably not a lightning question here. So it's supposed to be yes or no here. So I will say he is going to lose.
Ooh. Does the stock market end over or under 20,000 at the end of this year?
Over.
Does the U.S. COVID-19 infection rate go over under 500,000 in the U.S.?
Over.
And last but not least, do you think you will be on a vacation in the next 6 months?
Yes.
Good. Mark, I really want to thank you for joining me today in this episode for 15 for 15. That was great. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. And again, thank you for everything you and your company do for the community.
Thank you. Same to you. Absolutely. Everyone, we hope you all stay safe and practice social distancing and make sure to wash your hands. If you have any questions or would like to find this video, please visit rkwresidential.com.